The Gallic civilization, which flourished during the Iron Age and early centuries of the Roman Empire, played a pivotal role in the formation of European culture and identity. Situated in what is now modern-day France, Belgium, Switzerland, and parts of Italy and Germany, the Gauls were a collective of Celtic tribes with a shared language, religion, and social structure. Though the civilization ultimately succumbed to the might of the Roman Empire during the Gallic Wars, 58 to 50 BCE, its cultural, linguistic, and social contributions have had a lasting impact on the development of Europe. The Gauls' influence can still be felt today in the languages spoken across France and parts of Western Europe. The modern French language, for example, contains many words and expressions derived from Celtic languages. The political and social structures of the Gauls also laid the groundwork for later European developments, including the idea of tribal leadership, warrior codes, and the importance of civic participation in governance. Even in the face of Roman conquest, the legacy of the Gauls endures through the survival of their cultural practices and their integration into the larger fabric of European civilization. This essay will explore the origins, cultural achievements, and eventual downfall of the Gauls. It will examine their early history, social structures, religious beliefs, and military prowess, as well as their lasting influence on the Europe we know today. The Celts are believed to have originated in the Central European region known as the Hallstatt culture, circa 800 to 500 BCE. This early Celtic civilization, named after the archaeological site of Hallstatt in modern-day Austria, was characterized by distinctive art, burial practices, and social structures. The Celts then expanded across Europe during the La Tène period, circa 500 BCE to 1 CE, a time marked by the development of advanced metalworking techniques, intricate art, and the establishment of more complex social and political systems. As the Celts spread across Europe, their tribes formed in distinct regions. In the areas that would become Gaul, the tribes coalesced into a shared cultural identity, yet they remained independent from one another, each with its own chief or king. The term Gauls specifically refers to the Celtic tribes that inhabited the western part of Europe, particularly in the region now known as France, but also extending into Belgium, parts of Switzerland, and northern Italy. The Gallic tribes were primarily agricultural, yet they were also known for their military prowess. Their society was organized around tribal and clan structures, with each tribe consisting of several extended families. These families lived in fortified settlements, called oppida, which served as centers for trade, defense, and governance. The Gauls had a strong warrior class, and their warriors were highly valued within their society, often taking part in raids and conflicts with neighboring tribes. Archaeological evidence provides valuable insight into the early life of the Gauls. Numerous burial sites, settlements, and artifacts have been uncovered that help trace the migration of the Celts into the region. The transition from the Hallstatt culture to the La Tène culture is evident in the artifacts found in burial mounds and other sites. The Gauls were skilled metalworkers, creating intricate jewelry, weapons, and tools, many of which were found in tombs and ceremonial sites. One key archaeological discovery is the site of Bibracte, the capital of the Aeduans, a powerful Gallic tribe. This site, located in present-day Burgundy, offers a glimpse into the urban and defensive nature of Gallic settlements. Bibracte's strategic location on a hilltop provided both natural defense and control over the surrounding territory, highlighting the importance of military preparedness and territorial control among the Gauls. The remains of the oppidum, with its gates, streets, and public spaces, also reflect the social and political organization of the tribe. In addition to sites like Bibracte, evidence of Gallic burial practices has revealed much about the spiritual and social values of the Gauls. Grave goods, such as weapons, tools, and pottery, were often placed in tombs to accompany the dead into the afterlife, reflecting the importance of status and the belief in an existence beyond death. Such burial practices offer a window into the spiritual beliefs of the Gauls, including their reverence for warriors and the afterlife. The migration of Celtic tribes into Gaul is also attested by the archaeological record, with traces of early Celtic influence found in regions far beyond the core area of Gaul. Over time, the Celts moved westward, displacing or absorbing earlier cultures and spreading their language, art, and customs. By the 5th century BCE, the Celtic tribes had spread across a vast swath of Europe, from the British Isles to the Balkans. The Gauls, specifically, occupied the western part of the Celtic world, in what is now France and parts of Belgium, Switzerland, and northern Italy. Their territory, known as Gaul, Gallia in Latin, was bordered by the Atlantic Ocean to the west, the Mediterranean Sea to the south, the Rhine River to the east, and the English Channel to the north. The geographic spread of the Gauls allowed for a diverse and culturally rich civilization. Each region had its own distinct Gallic tribes, such as the Parisi, who gave Paris its name, the Aeduans, the Sequanians, and the Belgae. Despite their geographic dispersion, these tribes shared certain linguistic and cultural traits that united them as Gauls. The Celtic languages spoken by the Gauls evolved into various regional dialects, many of which were still spoken in different forms during the Roman conquest. The Gauls also had extensive trade networks that connected them with Mediterranean cultures, particularly the Etruscans, Greeks, and later the Romans. These trade routes facilitated the exchange of goods such as wine, pottery, and luxury items, while also bringing new cultural influences into Gaul. In turn, the Gauls exported goods such as tin, amber, and slaves, further cementing their role in the European economic and cultural landscape. At the heart of Gallic society was the tribe, a large group of families bound together by common language, customs, and territory. Within each tribe, power was often decentralized, with each clan possessing a degree of autonomy while still being loyal to the larger tribal unit. The clans, typically composed of extended families, formed the basic unit of Gallic society. Within these clans, there were leaders or chiefs, known as rigs, who were chosen based on their skills, experience, and the respect they commanded from their followers. Warriors were the most prestigious class in Gaelic society. Their role in defending the tribe and expanding its territory was central to the culture, and warriors often held positions of power and respect. In battle, they were distinguished by their bravery, and victory brought both material rewards and social prestige. Warriors typically fought in close-knit units, organized by tribe or clan, and often participated in raids or skirmishes to prove their prowess and protect their people. The warrior elite were also responsible for making important decisions, particularly during times of war or conflict. Though chiefs or kings held leadership positions, they were often advised by a council of elders or other experienced warriors. These councils played a key role in governance, guiding decisions on tribal alliances, military tactics, and even matters of law and justice. The political leadership of the Gauls was primarily held by kings or chiefs, but their power was not absolute. Kings, such as Vercingetorix of the Arverni tribe, were usually chosen for their military ability and leadership qualities. These leaders held sway over the people during times of war, but their rule was often temporary and based on the respect they earned from the tribe. In peace, tribes were governed by councils or assemblies made up of elders and warriors, where decisions were made by consensus rather than through dictatorial power. Druids, the priestly and intellectual elite of Gallic society, held immense influence, particularly in religious, legal, and educational matters. The Druids were highly regarded and served as intermediaries between the gods and the people. They were responsible for conducting rituals, sacrifices, and divinations, ensuring that the will of the gods was understood and respected. Beyond their religious roles, Druids also played a key part in education, passing down knowledge of law, history, and oral traditions to younger generations. Some Druids even acted as advisors to kings and chieftains, offering counsel on matters of governance and diplomacy. The warrior class, meanwhile, formed the backbone of the Gallic social structure. Warriors were often given land and privileges in exchange for their service in battle. Their prowess in combat was celebrated in Gallic culture, and their skill in using a variety of weapons, including swords, spears, and shields, was considered crucial to the tribe's survival and expansion. The warriors were also responsible for enforcing the law within their tribe, ensuring that conflicts were resolved and that order was maintained. Women in Gaelic society had significant roles, although they were generally not involved in warfare. Women were typically responsible for the household and the management of food, clothing, and the care of children. However, women were not considered completely subordinate in Gallic society. There are numerous historical accounts of women holding power, influencing decisions, and even leading battles. The most famous example is Queen Boudica of the Iceni, who led a revolt against the Romans in Britain. In the household, women were the main caretakers of the family unit, managing the day-to-day operations of the home and ensuring that the needs of the tribe were met. Women were also responsible for passing down oral traditions, including songs, stories, and genealogies, which preserved the history and culture of the tribe. They played a vital role in sustaining the social fabric of Gaelic life. Family life in Gallic society was patriarchal, with the father acting as the head of the household, although the mother's authority within the home was significant. Marriages were often arranged for political, economic, or social reasons, and alliances between tribes were sometimes sealed through marriage. The strength of the family was paramount, and loyalty to one's family and clan was central to Gaelic identity. The legal system in Gaul was rooted in customary law, with a strong emphasis on oral tradition. Law was not written down but was passed down through the druids, who were responsible for maintaining the legal codes. The laws covered various aspects of life, including marriage, property, and inheritance, as well as the conduct of warriors and the resolution of disputes between individuals or tribes. Disputes were often settled in public assemblies, where members of the tribe or clan would gather to hear the case and offer a verdict. The role of the druids in these assemblies was critical, as they acted as judges and ensured that justice was served according to the traditional laws of the tribe. Punishments for crimes ranged from fines to exile or even execution, depending on the severity of the offense. The legal system in Gaul emphasized restitution and maintaining social harmony rather than punishment alone. The Gallic pantheon was diverse, with deities associated with different aspects of life. Some gods were believed to oversee the natural world, such as the river god Boudica, while others were linked to specific traits, such as Tyrannus, the god of thunder and the sky. Cernunnos, often depicted with antlers, was a major god associated with fertility, animals, and the forest. The worship of nature gods and spirits reflected the Gauls' deep reverence for the earth and its cycles, which were integral to their agricultural lifestyle. In addition to these nature gods, the Gauls also revered deities associated with war, such as Camulus, the god of war and battle. Many Gallic tribes had their own local deities, worshipped in sacred groves or by rivers. These deities were believed to protect the tribe and provide guidance in times of war and peace. The gods were seen as deeply involved in the fate of the tribe, and the relationship between the Gauls and their gods was one of reciprocity. The people offered sacrifices to appease the gods and ensure their protection, prosperity, and success in battle. Druids played a central role in Gallic religion and society. As priests, they performed rituals, made sacrifices to the gods, and interpreted omens and signs. Their role extended beyond religion, as they were also responsible for preserving the knowledge of the tribe, including its laws, history, and traditions. The Druids acted as spiritual leaders, but also as educators, teaching the younger generations the sacred lore and customs of their people. The Druids held considerable influence, especially in tribal councils, where they were often called upon to offer advice or mediate disputes. They were seen as mediators between the divine and the human realms, and had the ability to influence the outcome of important events through their spiritual practices. The Druids' authority was such that even kings and chieftains deferred to their wisdom in matters of great importance. Sacred groves, rivers, and other natural landmarks were central to Gallic religious practices. The Gauls believed that these sites were inhabited by spirits or gods and held great spiritual significance. Many rituals took place in these natural locations, with sacrifices made to the gods in the form of offerings, such as animals, food, or even human lives in extreme cases. Animal sacrifices, especially of horses or pigs, were believed to ensure the fertility of the land and the success of the tribe in battle. The Gauls also practiced divination, using various methods to interpret the will of the gods. One common method was the reading of omens from the flight patterns of birds, as the Gauls believed that the gods communicated their messages through nature. Druids, as the religious leaders, were responsible for performing these rituals and interpreting the signs that would guide the tribe in times of peace and conflict. Gallic art was functional and decorative, with pottery and metalwork being some of the most significant expressions of Gallic craftsmanship. Gallic pottery, often decorated with intricate patterns and shapes, was used for both practical and ceremonial purposes. Metalworking, particularly the creation of jewelry, weapons, and tools, was highly developed, and the Gauls were known for their skill in creating finely crafted swords, shields, and helmets. These objects often featured elaborate designs and were decorated with motifs inspired by nature, such as animals, plants, and geometric patterns. Celtic art, including Gallic art, was characterized by intricate patterns and designs, often involving spirals, knots, and stylized depictions of animals and nature. These designs were used to decorate everyday objects, weapons, and ritual items, reflecting the Gauls' deep connection to the natural world. The use of such motifs in Gallic art served not only decorative purposes, but also symbolic functions, reflecting the spiritual beliefs and values of the Gauls. The Gauls had a rich tradition of music and oral storytelling. Music played an important role in religious ceremonies, feasts, and community gatherings. Instruments such as the cornu, a type of horn, and the lyre were commonly used in Gallic music. Dance was also an integral part of Gallic culture, often performed during religious rituals or celebrations. Through music and dance, the Gauls maintained a strong sense of community and identity. Agriculture formed the backbone of the Gallic economy. The Gauls cultivated crops such as wheat, barley, oats, and rye, and their agricultural practices were deeply tied to the seasonal rhythms of the natural world. They used advanced farming techniques, such as the plow, and the cultivation of crops was often a communal activity. In addition to growing crops, the Gauls were also skilled in animal husbandry, raising cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs. Cattle were particularly valued for their role in providing milk, meat, and leather, and oxen were used as draft animals for plowing fields or hauling loads. The Gallic economy also included early forms of industry. While the Gauls were not industrialized in the modern sense, they engaged in significant production and processing of materials. Metalworking was one of the most important early industries in Gaul, with the production of weapons, tools, and ornamental items being central to their economy. Blacksmiths and other artisans were highly respected members of society, and metalworking techniques spread across Europe, influencing other cultures. Additionally, the Gauls practiced pottery making, weaving, and leatherworking, creating a variety of goods for both domestic use and trade. Their craftsmanship in pottery was especially notable, with designs that reflect their artistic and symbolic traditions. The Gauls were not isolated. They were active participants in the broader European economy, particularly in trade with Mediterranean civilizations like the Greeks and Romans. One of the most significant trade routes passed through the Rhone River Valley, which allowed Gauls to transport goods between the Mediterranean Sea and northern Europe. This connectivity with the Mediterranean world was vital for the Gauls, as it enabled them to acquire luxury goods such as wine, olive oil, and pottery, while exporting items such as amber, tin, and slaves. The coastal areas of Gaul, particularly in what is now modern-day France, were heavily involved in trade with Greek colonies. Greek pottery and other imports were found in Gallic settlements, showing a significant exchange of culture and goods. The Gauls also traded in valuable metals, including gold, silver, and tin, which were in demand for their uses in creating weapons and jewelry. This access to both local and foreign resources allowed the Gauls to develop a rich material culture that blended their own artistic traditions with Mediterranean influences. The relationship between the Gauls and Mediterranean traders was mutually beneficial. While the Gauls received goods that were not locally available, they were also highly regarded for their metalwork, including finely crafted swords and shields. This exchange contributed to the prosperity of Gallic societies and helped integrate them into the wider economy of Europe. Metalworking was one of the most important economic activities in Gaul. The Gauls mined and worked various metals, particularly iron, bronze, and gold, to create weapons, tools, and decorative items. Iron was the most commonly used metal, and the Gauls were skilled at forging it into strong and durable tools, including axes, knives, and, most notably, swords and shields. The iron weapons used by Gallic warriors were prized for their quality, and the production of these weapons became a significant part of the economy. Gold and silver were also highly valued, not only for their use in crafting jewelry and decorative objects, but also for their role in trade. The Gauls exported metal goods across Europe, making their metalwork known and valued far beyond their own borders. The Gauls' expertise in craftsmanship and metalworking was one of the defining aspects of their culture, and it played a major role in both their economy and their military. The Gallic warriors were highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat and excelled in the use of weapons such as the longsword, spear, and battle axe. They were known for their fearlessness in battle and their use of light, mobile tactics that relied on speed and the ability to strike quickly. The warriors would often fight in loose formations, allowing for greater mobility, and they used ambushes and surprise attacks to catch their enemies off guard. Gallic armor was made from iron, leather, or chainmail, and it was designed to provide protection while still allowing for mobility. They used helmets, shields, and protective armor that varied from tribe to tribe, but the most iconic Gallic helmet is the Cassis Christa, which was adorned with a distinctive crest. Gauls also fought with large round shields that provided significant protection, but they often favored mobility over heavy armor. The primary weapon of a Gallic warrior was the longsword, typically a straight or slightly curved blade, but they also used spears, javelins, and slings for ranged attacks. Gallic warriors were skilled in using these weapons in both individual combat and large-scale battles. The Gauls engaged in numerous battles with neighboring tribes and invaders, but the most famous conflict in Gallic military history was the Gallic Wars, 58 to 50 BCE, against the Roman Republic. Before the rise of Julius Caesar, The Gauls had often been divided and fragmented, making it difficult for them to present a unified front against outside invaders. However, several tribes, including the Helvetii, the Aeduans, and the Arverni, were involved in a series of battles to maintain their autonomy and resist Roman expansion. The Battle of Gergovia, 52 BCE, and the Battle of Alesia, 52 BCE, are two of the most notable engagements in the Gallic Wars. At Gergovia, the Gauls, led by Vercingetorix, won a significant victory over Caesar's forces, showing that the Gauls were capable of putting up serious resistance. However, the decisive moment came at Alesia, where Caesar's forces surrounded and defeated Vercingetorix's army, leading to the fall of the Gallic resistance. The rise of Vercingetorix, the chieftain of the Arverni tribe, marked the pinnacle of Gallic resistance to Roman expansion. Vercingetorix was able to unite several Gallic tribes under his leadership to resist the Roman invasion. His military strategy was based on scorched earth tactics, which sought to deprive the Romans of resources, while also encouraging the Gauls to adopt a more coordinated and defensive approach. However, despite these efforts, the Gauls were ultimately defeated by Julius Caesar and the Roman legions. Vercingetorix was captured and paraded in Caesar's triumph before being executed. The defeat of the Gauls marked the end of significant Gallic resistance and the beginning of Roman domination over Gaul. The Gallic Wars began in 58 BCE, when Caesar intervened in a conflict between the Helvetii and other Celtic tribes. Over the next several years, Caesar would systematically defeat Gallic tribes, culminating in the Siege of Alesia in 52 BCE. This battle, where Vercingetorix's army was surrounded and forced to surrender, marked the end of significant Gallic resistance and the consolidation of Roman control over Gaul. Over the course of these wars, Caesar effectively dismantled Gallic tribal independence and brought the entire region under Roman influence. Julius Caesar's role in the conquest of Gaul cannot be overstated. Not only did he lead the Roman forces that defeated the Gauls, but his campaigns also served to boost his political and military prestige, paving the way for his rise to power in Rome. Caesar's military genius, coupled with his ability to exploit divisions among the Gallic tribes, enabled him to secure Roman dominance in the region. The impact of Roman rule on Gaul was profound. While the Gauls retained many aspects of their culture and traditions, Roman influence led to significant changes in the economy, governance, and social structure. The Roman Empire introduced new administrative systems, infrastructure, including roads, cities, and aqueducts, and Roman law, which replaced many of the traditional Gallic practices. Latin became the dominant language, and Romanization led to the decline of the Celtic languages over time. In terms of culture, the Gauls adopted many Roman customs, particularly in art, architecture, and religion. However, elements of Gallic culture, such as their warrior ethos, festivals, and certain religious practices, continued to influence the development of Roman Gaul. The most profound legacy of the Gauls is perhaps their lasting influence on modern France. The Gauls are considered the ancestors of the French people, and the ancient region of Gaul is the foundation of modern France. While the Roman Empire later dominated the region, many Gallic customs, traditions, and cultural practices remained embedded in the emerging French identity. For example, French symbols such as the rooster, a symbol of Gallic pride, have roots in ancient Gallic times, representing the bold and resilient spirit of the people. The unification of Gaul under Roman rule helped create a common cultural and administrative framework that laid the groundwork for modern French civilization. Elements of the Gallic warrior ethos, agricultural practices, and religious beliefs were incorporated into the broader Romanized culture of France, which later evolved into the modern nation-state. France's language, customs, and traditions bear traces of this ancient legacy, particularly in rural communities and regional cultures. Beyond France, the Gauls' influence can be seen across Europe, particularly in regions that were once part of ancient Gaul, such as Belgium, Switzerland, and parts of Germany. Gallic tribes, such as the Belgae in modern Belgium and the Helvetii in modern Switzerland, contributed to the early identity of these regions. The broader impact of Gallic culture shaped the foundations of several European nations, and some of the ideals of independence, unity and diversity, and resistance to foreign rule continue to resonate in contemporary European political thought. While the Gaulish language itself largely disappeared due to Romanization, its influence persists in various forms. Latin became the dominant language in Gaul after the Roman conquest, but it evolved into the Romance languages, most notably French. French, as a direct descendant of Vulgar Latin, inherited many vocabulary and grammatical structures that can trace their origins to the Celtic Gaulish language. Some words in modern French, as well as in other Celtic languages like Breton, Cornish, and Welsh, have traces of Gaulish roots. For example, place names, family names, and certain everyday words have preserved elements of the Gaulish language. Additionally, the cultural and linguistic exchanges between the Gauls and other Celtic groups across Europe helped to preserve a linguistic heritage that contributed to the diverse linguistic landscape of Europe. In more recent years, there has been a resurgence of interest in the Celtic languages and cultures, and the study of the Gaulish language is part of this broader effort. While Gaulish is no longer spoken, scholars continue to study its inscriptions and texts, contributing to the broader understanding of ancient European languages. The image of the Gauls has undergone various transformations over the centuries. In ancient Rome, the Gauls were seen as fierce but somewhat primitive and uncivilized enemies of the Roman Empire. This perception was largely shaped by Roman propaganda, which portrayed the Gauls as barbarian hordes, often emphasizing their disorganization and lack of unity. However, modern historians have a more nuanced view of the Gauls, recognizing their complex societies, rich culture, and significant achievements in art, warfare, and governance. In popular culture, the Gauls are perhaps most famously depicted in the Asterix comic series, which has shaped the modern view of Gallic civilization. The comic portrays the Gauls as plucky and resourceful underdogs, resisting the might of the Roman Empire with cleverness and determination. Though comedic, this representation has contributed to a positive image of the Gauls as symbolizing freedom, independence, and resistance to tyranny. In historical scholarship, the Gauls are now recognized as a significant cultural force in pre-Roman Europe. Their military prowess, social structure, religious beliefs, and artistic contributions are studied for their importance in understanding the broader Celtic world. The Gauls' role in shaping the development of Europe, particularly in terms of their interactions with Rome and other Mediterranean cultures, is seen as a key chapter in European history. The legacy of the Gauls is both rich and enduring, stretching far beyond the fall of their civilization. Although their independent tribes were eventually subsumed into the Roman Empire, their cultural, linguistic, and historical contributions continue to influence modern Europe. In particular, the Gauls' legacy is most evident in the shaping of French identity and culture, as well as in the broader European appreciation for Celtic heritage. In reflecting on the historical significance of the Gauls, it is clear that they were not merely victims of Roman conquest, but active participants in the creation of European civilization. The Gauls' influence continues to resonate, reminding us of the diverse roots from which modern European culture has evolved, and the importance of understanding and preserving the legacies of ancient civilizations.